Hello everyone and welcome to the video. This is the video I told you I was going to be doing, breaking down 30 cal wounds, part of the shot that was taken, and how an entry wound could look like an exit wound, and what my beliefs are on what happened and why we saw what we did. I would like to state ahead of time, I will not be rolling in any images of Charlie. I don't feel that's appropriate, and I don't think it's necessary for what I'm doing. But what I am going to do is break down images that I have, and I'm going to start. The very first image I'm going to put up is a Google Earth image of the campus, and it would be more or less, I'm trying to show you the trajectory of the shot, so you can see the blue circle is going to be where the alleged shooter was. The red circle is where Charlie Kirk was seated, and the yellow line is more or less the path of the bullet. It's obviously not exact. It's a hand-drawn line on an image, but more or less that's what it would be. What I would like to point out is from before, I had mentioned that it was a approximately 132 yard shot. And that's wrong. I believe it was 137. I don't have the image in front of me, but I think it was 137. Either way, it would have been initially, I reported it as a 32-foot elevation loss. And the more I look at the scene and the layout of the ground, what I believe is if you look at the building where the shooter was at, you can see 3 stories. He was on top of the 3rd story. So that's approximately 10 foot per story, 10, 20, 30. That's where you get the 32-foot elevation loss that I originally had mentioned in the other video. However, looking at the scene more and going into it, you can see where Charlie was seated down in that little corridor there. And I'm looking at the little walls that are there. They look like they're approximately 2-foot cement walls, and it steps up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 walls. So I assume that's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 extra feet down. So I'm guessing that the shot actually had a 42-foot elevation loss. I may have mentioned that in the last video, but I would like to point that out now, that that's my belief now, looking at more of it, is that it was actually a 42-foot elevation loss. The next image that I'm going to put up, first, also, I would like to point out, with this image, it would have been a downward angled shot. So, regardless of anything, upon impact of the bullet, it would have been coming downward, so the trajectory would have continued on a downward path upon impact. It would not have come straight forward and gone clean out the back at the neck where people seem to think it would have. So let's see here. That's that one. The next image I'm going to show are going to be here. After having showed you the shot, I kind of want to throw up these images of Andrew Colvette, his post that he posted. And he said, I want to address some of the discussion about the lack of an exit wound with Charlie. I'm usually not interested in delving into most of this kind of online chatter, and I apologize this is somewhat graphic. But in this case, the fact that there wasn't an exit wound is probably another miracle, and I want people to know. I just spoke with a surgeon who worked on Charlie in the hospital. He said the bullet absolutely should have gone through, which is very normal for a high-powered, high-velocity round. I've seen wounds from this caliber many times, and they always just go through everything. This would have taken down a moose or two. This would have taken a moose or two down, an elk, etc. I want to state this for a fact right now. A 30-06 is capable of going through one moose into a second moose if you have a clean through and through shot. That would be assuming that it was a standard ball round and not a soft point, which I'll put pictures of those up later. And it is possible to fire a standard ball round or a penetrator round and it go through one moose completely and into the second one. However, by the time you reach that second moose's body, your amount of energy would have been so minimal that you might end up with a wounded animal that runs off and did not die. I would never take a shot on a moose with any gun and assume that I'm going to make it through two of them, because that is not likely. Possible, not likely. And an elk, yeah, it would definitely stop an elk. It says, but it didn't go through. Charlie's body stopped it. I mentioned to his doctor that there were dozens of staff, students, and special guests standing directly behind Charlie on the other side of the tent, and he replied, it was an absolute miracle that someone else didn't get killed. His bone was so healthy and the density was so impressive that he's like a man of steel. It should have just gone through and through. It likely would have killed those standing behind him too. In the end, the coroner did find the bullet just beneath the skin. Even in death, Charlie managed to save the lives of those around him. Remarkable and miraculous. Okay, the round could have gone through and hit people behind had it been a through and through. That is absolutely true, and it's happened before. It's not a thing that could not happen. His bones being healthy and dense absolutely could have made a difference. Calling him the man of steel, I don't necessarily agree with that, because bullets do crazy things, and this is a miracle or a happening of what bullets do. So, in the end, on that, a 30-06 is not likely to go through two moose, as he stated. It is possible, but it's not likely. Now, we know that there has been some leaked data from, I believe it was the medical examiner. I was going to do a second video completely disproving the second shooter from the right, which I've already done a video where I believe that I already proved that. The shooter didn't shoot him from the right. There wasn't an entry wound on the right side of his neck and a mass exit on the left. That's not true. And if you tried to argue that, you're saying the round went clean through and it didn't hit nobody on his left. Nobody over there. There was no impact. There was nothing like that. And it didn't happen. So stop lying. There was no shooter to the right. So people now want to know, well, then how could a 30 cal round have done that? And what I'm going to show you now, the next image I'm going to show you is, it's a picture of 3 different bullets. You have on the right side is going to be a 30 caliber soft point 30-06, and that is a hunting round. And the point of that, if you look at it, there's little notches at the top where that's a soft lead at the top of the round, and it's designed to, like a hollow tip, mushroom out at the end and fragment into the target. The one next to it, that is I believe it is a Norma ballistic tip. That is also a 30 cal, 150 grain hunting round that I load. And then all the way to the left, that's just your standard full metal jacket, ball, 150 grain, 30 cal round. That's the round that I load for all my waste on the range ammo. You know, if I'm just going to go out and practice shooting, that's what I'm shooting. The one in the middle would be what I would load into a hunting round for hunting deer. Then the one on the right is also a hunting round. It's, again, a soft point. And so you can see all 3 of them next to each other. The next thing I'm going to do is just bring up the soft point so you can see it here and see those little notches in the tip of the bullet right there, which is what causes the peeling of the copper away from that lead internal portion. The next one is going to be the Norma ballistic tip hunting round. And that one, it also is designed to not necessarily peel back at the front, but more mushroom out and flatten the front of it for impact on an animal to create mass trauma at the entrance. And the last one I'll put up is the standard full metal jacket or ball round. This is the most likely to punch clean through and through, because it's just lead core, copper jacketed, and they tend to just punch clean through things. The reason that you don't use those for hunting and you don't really want to use those if you're trying to take down any form of big game or something like that, is because you end up with a through and through where there's not enough trauma inside to kill the game animal, we'll say. So that wouldn't be the round that you would necessarily use. However, this is the most likely round for a through and through, green tip being the next, the soft point the last. Now, we are going to bring up this image right here. Is an image of what you would call a keyholing round. Now, people want to know, how could there be that much damage at the entrance? And there is always a possibility with old rounds that they do this, which is called keyholing. And it's, as the bullet's flying through the air, it either, one, is being spun too fast or spun too slow. So the heavier weighted bullet, you want your barrel to have more rifling and spin faster. So say you're firing an AR, a 5.56. If you have a 1.9, 1.8 twist, you can run 55 grains really easy. And that's kind of where you would want to be. However, in the military, they run heavier grain rounds. I believe it's a 72, like your green tips and stuff like that. Well, they run a 1-in-7 twist, which means that there is one full rotation of the bullet within 7 inches, and it speeds the bullet up faster. Well, if you're running a 1-7 twist with a 55 grain, sometimes it spins the bullet too fast and you lose stability in air. A lot of old 30 cal rounds, like old rounds that, your grandpa might have in the safe that he never fired, a lot of them tend to lose the, I'm not necessarily velocity, but the potency of the round. And a lot of them, you'll find that you fire them and the bullet will start keyholing, and it happens a lot, and I was actually firing a Mosin Nagant last week out back, and it keyholed on us a couple times. Super old rounds, it happens sometimes. So this image, just to show you that a bullet could do that. And now, if you take into account that the bullet was already coming at a downward trajectory, and there is the possibility that that round may have already been keyholing or tilting the nose of the round down upon impact, well, now you're going to have a wound that is already the size of a 30 cal sideways, not a 30 cal round straight through hole. You would have a slightly tilted round, and it would cause a significantly larger entry wound than what would be your standard through and through, clean, stable round. You also have that once it hits something, the tumble it'll get more significant and potentially dump all the energy right there on the spot, and it won't go through. You talk about a shoulder blade. That's a solid bone. Now you come down on a downward trajectory. You're already tumbling. You hit something and dump that energy right there. It could hit the shoulder blade and turn that little bit and hit the spine. Again, I don't know. I'm theorizing based on the fact that I know ballistics and I know that bullets do crazy things. So the next image I'm going to show you is going to be it is a torso image of a human torso. And now what I want to point out to you is the collarbone going directly across. It will be on the right side of the image for you. That collarbone going from the center, from the sternum, it heads straight across, and you can feel your own would be right here. It heads straight across like that and connects above the shoulder. So behind that, the blue that you can see there is going to be, I'm going to show you in this next image, that blue that you're seeing is the internal jugular vein. Okay, so you imagine that any trauma to this portion of the neck is going to sever all of that. It just is. Now, again, I don't know anything other than they are saying for certain now it was one round. It did enter from the front. It was a front shot, and it did stop. A part of the bullet stopped next to his spine. It went back and stopped next to his spine. Now, people are going to ask, how is that possible? And how could there be that damage? Well, this is a theory. This is a hypothesis. I'm guessing based on what I know about rounds. But if you look at the human torso, if you have a downward angled round coming in, and based on everything I've seen, and could be an explanation for the reaction of his shirt, based on everything I've seen, it looks like the round more than likely impacted him directly in his collarbone right here. If that's the case, that bullet would have immediately spalled, potentially changed directions more down due to the downward angle of it already. Now, if that round hits you in your collarbone, you imagine it's going to create mass trauma right there. And through the image I'm going to show you, I've already put it up, and I'll put it up again right now, right here. You're going to see right behind that collarbone is all of the arteries. Now, that round hits here, and again, we don't know what type of bullet was used. Was it a soft point? Was it a ballistic tip hunting round? Was it a full metal jacket? My assumption is going to be that it was more than likely a 30-06 soft point hunting round. I'd really like to know. I'd like to see the pictures of it. We haven't seen any. And if there are any out there that someone can get, I'd really like it if you can show me where to get it. But my assumption that it is more than likely a 30 cal soft point, whether it be 150 grain or 180 grain, it really doesn't make a difference. And I believe upon impact to the collarbone right here, I mean, that's in the general area of where the wound is, and we all know that. An impact on the collarbone that would have, from a soft point, immediately shrapneled and spalled. And for those that don't know what spalling is, I actually have a target that I was shooting the other day. We were just messing around on the range, but that is what you refer to as spalling. The bullet hit directly below this on a steel gong, and it shredded upwards, and you can see where one tumble is. Now watch, when I turn this around, how much damage is on the back of that from the spalling. The round hit here on a steel plate, and you can see that V where it just spread out upwards. All those little chunks of that 30 cal bullet disappeared. That is from a 30 cal soft point right there, and all of that exploded. And there's actually chunks of bullet stuck inside of here, just little chunks. So now imagine a 30 cal soft point impacts at a downward angle in the collarbone, spalls, shreds, immediately tears through everything right here, and directly behind right here is going to be your internal jugular vein. It's right there. It's all there. And a spalling round, it's going to blow apart. Now, I would think they would have found more shrapnel than just a chunk stuck by the spine. However, downward angle, and we're going to turn to the side here, downward angle, it's coming down, hits here, spalls out. It's headed in a downward trajectory. It wouldn't exit up here. It would absolutely exit on a downward angle, or it would go through on a downward angle. And if it were going to punch through, it would punch through the shoulder blade. Now, if you impact into a bone immediately and it dumps all that energy there, that would cause an instantaneous shockwave. I mean, it happens at the moment of impact, and that would cause a fluff in the shirt from the impact, which again, that impact would push your head forward and your body would do a lean back to a fall. It's what happened to him. Again, I don't like the idea of trying to say this or this didn't happen, but I can tell you that more than likely that's what happened with him. And it would fully explain the trauma to the neck, the shockwave in the shirt, and on top of that, anyone arguing that it had to be an exit for that blood pattern to occur, that is absolutely not true. Your jugular vein that's running up is right in front of where the aorta hooks up to your inferior thyroid artery. That is directly in front of the jugular. So you're breaking through the inferior thyroid or artery, the internal jugular vein, all of that right there. Well, the thyroid artery connects to your aorta. I mean, your heart's pumping that blood. So as soon as you open that up, your heart's pumping upwards. So what's going to happen if your heart continues to pump upwards? All of that blood is going to exit from that wound. It just is. That's the path of least resistance would be where that now shredded open section is. And the blood from the brain isn't pumping down. Your brain doesn't pump. Blood flows through your brain from your heart pumping it through. So everything from here, your heart is pumping upwards and would send all that blood this way. It's just a fact. That's how anatomy works. That's how blood works. That's how the heart works. It's pumping, and that's exactly where it would exit, would be right there. For the people who are saying, the Navy SEAL who's saying, I've shot many people close range and that's an exit wound. It's absolutely an exit wound. He's a liar. I don't care how many people he's shot at close range. I don't care what he's done with M4 variant, M16 variant, Mark 18, whatever it is that he was running. I don't care. I'm willing to bet that 99%, if not all of his kills, came from an AR platform rifle. The likelihood that he was ever standing next to or behind the scope of bolt action rifle that let a round go on somebody, I don't believe it. I don't think he did. I'm not going to say he wasn't SEAL Team 6. He was. But again, I've already proved that he's lied about multiple things when it comes to bolt action rifles. So I find it very hard for him to believe anything, or for me to believe anything he says, because I know that he's at minimum being disingenuous or making up things that he doesn't know what he's talking about, which is crazy because I believe he's like a spokesman for the NRA and hunting and says he's hunted his whole life or something like that. So saying that you can't take a bolt action rifle apart with 2 screws and that you couldn't put it back together in less than a few minutes or take it apart in less than a few minutes, well, that's a lie. I've already proved that. You can go watch the other videos. So again, I've given you my opinion on what that trauma would be. And when it comes to everybody saying he aimed for his neck, I don't think he did aim for his neck. And what I'm going to do is I am going to attempt to put up the image of the torso anatomy, and I am going to try to overlay on it the gong that I have from the video we did the other day, where my 10-year-old did this exact 132-yard shot at a 32-foot elevation loss. And I'm going to show you where his point of aim and point of impact is in this shot. Now, actually, I'll put it up right here real quick so you can see it, that the shot from where he pointed, or where his point of aim was, the POA, it elevated approximately 3 inches and went approximately 2 inches to, it would be the right, and it would be this way. So if you take that and you assume, first I'm going to say the reason that this shot hit where it hit based on his point of aim is I knew my son had never fired this rifle before, and I was fully expecting some form of variation from trigger pull. I was expecting that. So I gave him his point of aim based on 9-mile-an-hour wind gusts and the fact that I believed there would be a trigger pull variation in a variant in his shot. And on top of that, I zeroed this rifle in with 4 bullets in a matter of like 20 minutes, letting it cool down between shots. It was a super hasty zero. I did not pinpoint zero this in because, again, it was for a video that I knew it didn't have to be precise because the shot's easily doable without a precise rifle as long as you know what you're doing. So I'm going to try to put this image over and show you where if you overlaid this gong on a human torso and you aimed center mass, where this bullet hit in this gong is literally right here. I mean, it literally is exactly where that shot would have hit if you had someone with their rifle zeroed in at 200 yards and they had a slight trigger pull to the right because they were right-handed. center mass chest, that bullet hits right in the collarbone, dead on. And actually, I might see if I can superimpose the image over me right here so you can see. It's a fact. I think he did it. I'm actually going to do another video, and I already have lots of Google Earth images where I'm going to show you, number one, the overlays from Google Earth from every direction. I'm going to show you where the guy was standing that took the image up onto the roof that showed him laying on the roof. I'm going to show you where the camera is that captured him jumping off of the roof. And I'm going to show you what I believe was his escape route, where I believe that he hid the rifle, approximately, because there's only a couple places. I'm going to show you where I believe the footage from the surveillance camera on the home is that shows him cutting behind the house. And I'm not going to post it, but I am almost certain I know exactly which home that surveillance camera was on and where it was placed on the house. This is what I do. I research, I do intel, and I'm going to break it down, and I'm going to explain to you if this had been an op that I was conducting or that the military was conducting, this is almost exactly how you would do it. It would only take me about 2 to 3 days to get this entire layout done, figure out the best point of advantage for the shot, and then start coordinating when I was going to do it, how I was going to do it, the logistics of it, how I would get the weapon there. And I'm actually thinking about maybe even doing a video of tearing apart a bolt-action rifle, and I'll have to change out the scopes on it so that it's a smaller. I now believe he had a 3 to 9 by 40 based on a 3 to 9 by 40 I'm working on right now. And I might even try to put it up inside of my hoodie and stick it in my pants and see if it's possible to walk like that. Because it is possible, but how obvious would it be? So if you guys want, we'll try to get that done. But we're going to end this one here because I was supposed to do a 5-minute video and it turned into a 28-minute video. So hopefully you guys understand now how a 30 cal could do this, what my belief is on what it did. And I don't think there's a need for searching for a second shooter. I don't believe it. Maybe, but I'd like to think more that it wasn't necessarily a second shooter. This was more of what did that CIA guy say it was? A nudge. That this kid was nudged to do it. And there's nothing saying that someone else military didn't set up this shot for him and tell him where to go. But when you see the images I do in the next video, you're going to see that it wouldn't have been that hard to set this up. And I could fully see how someone his age and with his minimal skill set could have done this. All right. Thank you, everybody, for watching.